Minutes past 9 o'clock. You're listening to Monday Breakfast with Peter Cassidy until 10, and then you'll have to listen to me a little bit more because I'm filling in for Steve-O's box of chocolates until midday. We have something for everyone here on 94.1, and my great pleasure to welcome to the microphone in his regular spot from Neighbourhood Watch, Mr. Ray Summers. Mr. Summers, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Peter.
How are you?
Oh, I'm well.
Oh, that's better. You're
that
on
better?
Microphone now.
Oh, I've got to speak to it, have I? Well, Peter, did you win any major prizes? I didn't.
No, but
right.
I'm hoping for a big one. I had a good feeling about Powerball last week, the 60 mil.
Well, I won a little bit on
30 mil.
Powerball. I didn't buy a ticket, so I've still got that money.
There you go. You've got to be a winner.
Anyway, we're both still happy.
Yes, we are.
We've parked the Morris Minor out the front, and everything's going along. Well, that's life anyway, and we're enjoying it.
Indeed.
Today, I have brought along the Secretary of Neighbourhood Watch Victoria, Jeff Clute, whom you've met before, to speak about Neighbourhood Watch at a state level. Welcome, Jeff, to 3WBC 94.1. I've got to make sure I get all that correct.
Yes, it's a mouthful, isn't it?
Isn't it? And our host, Peter Cassidy. Jeff has been the acting CEO for the last 18 months and has done a huge job. Neighbourhood Watch is indebted to Jeff for his amazing work in keeping us on track. That party's had to work very hard to keep us on track. I've said enough, so Jeff, I invite you to share Neighbourhood Watch news with Peter and 3WBC listeners.
And good morning, Jeff. Welcome to 94.1 and, of course, the breakfast program in particular. Now, you have, we were speaking off air, you have taken the spot that was previously filled, the spot you previously held temporarily has now been filled by Bambi Gordon, that's right?
That's correct, Peter, and good morning.
And you were in that spot on a temporary basis for...
It was temporary for a few months. It ended up being 18, but never mind. We won't talk about that.
Welcome. So thank you very much for coming in.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about what's happening with Neighbourhood Watch right now.
Well, perhaps if I can just backtrack a little bit, Peter. In that 18 months, one of the great things about being CEO of Neighbourhood Watch was I got to meet the members all of groups scattered throughout the state. And some of them had been in groups for a very long time, and others were just actually new to the business. But the thing that struck me was the sort of dedication of the long-standing members and the interest shown by these new people setting up the groups. And it struck me that the thing that sort of drove these people was they felt responsible for keeping their community safe, and that's sort of, I suppose, the theme at the back of Neighbourhood Watch.
Yes, I guess it's, as you say, it's been the sustaining theme for Neighbourhood Watch over many, many years. How old is the organisation in Victoria now?
Well, it started in 1983, okay. So that's 32 or 33, Excellent. 34 years. And in the sort of eastern suburbs, generally a couple of years later. So yes. Whitehorse, Manningham around there was probably about 1985. So, we've been around a while.
My word, yes. And of late, I guess you've had, as you said, you've had new branches opening, but over that 30-year period, you've certainly had some closures, unfortunately, as well, haven't you?
Well, one of the very challenging things with Neighbourhood Watch at the moment is that a lot of us, and I can say us because I'm included in that, have been involved for 30 plus years, and we're at that age where others need to sort of step up and take over.
Yes.
And the encouraging thing, and you mentioned our new CEO, she's sort of driving the idea of getting a younger involvement in Neighbourhood Watch.
Yes.
Possibly, using social media and other techniques that have sort of come in. I mean, it's a daunting thought that when we started Neighbourhood Watch, the internet wasn't in common use. And so, and now look where we are, where people can zap messages to thousands of others. At the flick of a switch sort of thing.
That's
so
right.
I think the Neighbourhood Watch that will go into the future will be a bit different from the one that, say, Ray and I have come up with.
Yes.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it'll be poorer for it. It could well be a a lot better because of this faster communication.
In fact, enhanced by it to a certain extent.
Well, indeed, I know this really shows our age, but when we started, our way of communicating was the telephone tree. You know, I heard a message from the police, I told 5 people told 5 people, and on it went.
That's
now
right.
you can do that with one sort of wide broadcast type message, and it flows to as many
Everybody.
people as you really want,
All
and
at the same
so on.
time.
Yes. So
Just incredible. And I guess to some extent, though, the new technology has caused homeowners, let's talk about homeowners rather than businesses for Neighbourhood Watch, but homeowners to rethink their security. Do they really need Neighbourhood Watch? Because, hey, we can put cameras at every corner of the house, inside, outside, and connect our phone to the local security service and whatever. Do we really need Neighbourhood Watch? Maybe I won't join. Has that been a contributing factor to some extent, the new technology, do you think?
I'm not sure if it was that, because one of the things about Neighbourhood Watch is we're sort of like an education organisation. We're trying to explain to people how they can keep themselves safe or reduce crime, not necessarily prevent it, but certainly reduce it. And all of these new technologies are very helpful tools. But ultimately, it's all about individuals looking out for themselves and their nearby neighbours. And if you use technology, closed circuit TV or whatever, that's all just tools to assist in the job. But ultimately, I would love everybody to look after their own property, look after their neighbours, keep an eye out for them, and if they see something suspicious, tell the police. Now, if everybody did that, Neighbourhood Watch could shut tomorrow. We don't need Neighbourhood Watch if people do some fairly simple things.
Yes.
Our real problem is that there's I fear, but this might be my age talking rather than real, that people are now looking to others to do something. Why didn't the police stop something? Why didn't, we have people who leave their cars unlocked and then sort of look for somebody to blame when they get the goods stolen out of the vehicle. Well, we still, despite all the technology, we've still got to take responsibility for ourselves.
Yes, we do. Unfortunately, though, that sort of mentality is to be found right through society at various levels, and that's another subject we could go into at some length. But
Yes,
it is disappointing. Sorry, I managed to divert you from the script. So
oh no, well I think the points were well worth making. And as I say, we're talking about the technology, and I think if it's used wisely, it can be certainly a tool to help in crime prevention. The thing that I suppose troubles me, and I keep prefacing these sort of remarks because people will sort of say, he's not with it, with what's going on in technology, is that we hear of groups, and they can be Neighbourhood Watch groups or even just community groups that are connected with Facebook, and that's very effective and so on. But they something goes wrong, an incident occurs, and they spray out these messages to a lot of people.
Yes.
And then 2 weeks later, when you're talking about it, you say, "Well, who rang the police?" I told Fred and I told Mary, and nobody bothered to ring 000. And so then we've got people saying, but the police didn't turn up. Well, of course they didn't turn up because nobody bothered to tell them, and so we get to that. Yeah. Some of this stuff is so basic. It's not the matter that you have to sit down and read an encyclopedia and learn how to do this stuff. Just the simple things of looking after your belongings, looking after your neighbours, and calling the authorities or the police when something, is suspicious.
Yes.
And that's really sort of, I suppose, the basic principles behind Neighbourhood Watch.
Yes.
The other element, if I might add, Peter, is that there's only is not a fair word, but there's about 13,500 police members in Victoria. They can't be everywhere.
Right.
If you think of them working shifts, that actually reduces the number of police that are on the road at any point in time, because they rotate shifts through 24 hours and so on. But there's 13,500 police members, and there's something like 4 million adult Victorians. Now, the police can't be everywhere, but we are everywhere. So the whole system relies on us supporting the police by being their eyes and ears.
Yes.
And so if we see something suspicious, that's when we ring 000, hand it over to the experts. We urge people not to get personally involved, because of course if you get a smack in the mouth by somebody who's doing something wrong, then the police have to deal with you as an injured person as well as the offender. So they've got two problems. So we sort of urge people to report, and reasonably discreetly. If you can record a registration number of a car, fine, but if you can't, so be it. And then pass on the information and leave it to the police. And if they decide to send 3 police cars or one officer on a bicycle, that's their decision.
Yes.
You've handed over the information.
Yes, so get involved. If you see something that's amiss, be sure you're the one to report it, but don't get involved in the action. We see a lot of stuff on television these days, particularly off the jolly internet, with people taking crowbars to people trying to steal their cigarettes or whatever. And we don't want that. That's very risky stuff, because as a policeman once said to me, if you come at somebody with a crowbar or a baseball bat, what's to say he's not going to grab that baseball bat or crowbar and belt the hell out of you?
Well, indeed. And
risky stuff.
It is. And the thing I suppose that I find a little bit frustrating is that so much of this is common sense. It's not a matter of learning things that you learning technical things. You just what's a sensible person do?
Yes.
We've had people, I know it's not very flattering, but when we've been talking at meetings, who've said, something happened at 2 o'clock in the morning, but I didn't want to ring 000 because I didn't want to disturb them, implying that these people were asleep sort of thing rather than working shifts. So we had to gently explain, well, these folk are working 3 shifts and, 2 o'clock in the morning would be very close to sort of lunchtime for the person working the night shift, And these are things, and I suppose for the older people in the community, the challenge is that when we were youngsters and something went wrong, Mum would say, "Don't make a fuss," sort of thing, and I think that's carried through a little bit. So when people see something and they think, it might be a false alarm, I might report something and it's not, genuine. The suspicious person sitting in the car for 3 hours was actually checking on a work cover claim or something, and not actually a criminal sort of checking out homes.
No.
Well, the police accept that there'll be occasional false alarms. They still rather the community ring in things that don't look right. They live in that area. You think of, I don't know how to use, you've lived in your house, but you're familiar with the street. You're familiar with whose car's which, even the son's car who comes to the house 3 doors up. You've seen that a few times. So if you see it in the street, it doesn't fuss you. But if you see a red ute with 2 people sitting there for 3 hours, that should sort of ring bells, because that's not what normally happens here. No. So we say ring it in. Might be help police catch some crooks, or it might be a quite sensible and usual, or not usual, but legitimate situation, and everybody will go on their way, and so be it. That's fine.
Something that has been argued about recently in the press, and a lot of people have had their say, is crime statistics. And the Crime Statistics Agency released their stats for the 12 months to the 31st of March. And the crime rate in Whitehorse has been reduced.
Well, yes, that's it's quite interesting. As you say, it was last Thursday when the Crime Statistics Agency brought out the stats, which bring us up to the 31st of March this year. And for the 12 months of up till then, crime overall in Whitehorse has reduced by 2.6%. Now, one way of looking at that is that we could sort of congratulate Ray and his helpers for all the good work that the Whitehorse Neighbourhood Watch has done. That might be slightly overstating it, but it does. I think it's a combined effect of the police, Neighbourhood Watch, and even just the community perhaps reporting crimes and so on. So that's sort of the good side of the story, because for the same 12 months, the rate for Victoria has actually gone up by 2.5%, so that puts Whitehorse in a very good light. But the thing that perhaps rings a few little bells is that burglary and theft offences in Whitehorse have gone up 20% in that same 12 months, which means that other crimes have, dropped
Yes.
quite significantly, because the burglaries tend to be the larger numbers of crimes in the community. So there's still, I don't think Ray can hand in his resignation at this stage. I think there's a bit more work for
We need
You
more.
believe it.
a bit more work for him to do yet. So, but anyhow, look, it is encouraging news, particularly when you look through some of the other municipalities. There's still crime is increasing. So
It's a good start.
it's good. And if we could build on that in Whitehorse next year, that would be fantastic.
And the direction of Neighbourhood Watch in Victoria now, where are we heading at state level, Jeff Clute?
Well, of course, it's early days with our new CEO, but she's got a marketing background, and that's one of the significant things I think that will come in the next 12 months. We've tended to be a little below the radar, certainly in the period I was in the CEO's position, because quite candidly there was a limit to how many things I could cope with in that time. So we'll see how she goes, but I think some of her ideas will start to come through, and we'll see a more visible presence. But we're certainly still looking at ways to encourage people to be sort of more aware of what's going on around them, and to, report and so on. We're, as I said before, we're now sort of very much broadening the scope of how a neighbourhood watch should operate, and the traditional people meeting monthly and so on, which I was brought up on, is available to us. But if other groups want to meet through the virtual world, electronically,
That's what we do a lot.
then that's great too. The question mark slightly in my mind is, if we want to do projects in the field, will people who only interact by electronic means, will we be able to sort of muster 10 volunteers to go do something at a shopping centre?
Yes.
But I feel that if the people feel is a worthwhile thing to do, they will come along and help their community. We're still at the same thing of urging individuals to take responsibility for themselves, and that hasn't changed whether we're using paper communications or electronic. We want to try and improve the interaction between the local communities and the police, although I would hasten to add here in Whitehorse, there's a very good rapport between Neighbourhood Watch and the police. I think that, and in fact in the eastern suburbs generally, the police seem very supportive of Neighbourhood Watch, and the volunteers react accordingly. The police help us and we support them, so I think that's all, we'll just be building on other things. The other thing is the safer and caring communities. The word caring, this business of looking out for each other, is still sort of in the back of it. And the other part that we would like to do is encourage more people from sort of the migrant or cold communities to join Neighbourhood Watch. That if you look through the organisation, it is a fairly sort of white or Caucasian sort of background.
Yes, I'm guessing it would be.
And some people whose first language is in English are reluctant, although some of them have joined our groups, and quite candidly their English is better than ours, but that's, they speak very well, but they sort of have that reticence because of they've got perhaps a slight accent or something. So we'd like to sort of encourage those, and we're talking to, even now, to some of the communities that work with them. And then the younger folk, of course, hopefully with the different communication mediums or media that they are much more familiar with, they'll come on board because they can sort of jump on Facebook and it's part of their other Facebook activities.
Right.
And
it's all part of the younger culture.
Yeah.
And if people would like more information, they can visit the Neighbourhood Watch website, which is all the w's.nhw.com.au, and you can get involved. Please get involved. Neighbourhood Watch has been a very valuable part of our community for many years, and we hope for many years into the future. And anything else that you'd like to add, Jeff, before we close this morning?
No, thank you. It's great to have a chance to talk to you and talk to the local community.
Thank you very much. Jeff Clute from Neighbourhood Watch. Great talking to you. Thank you for your time this morning, Jeff. And Ray Summers.
Thank you, Peter, for having us both.
And you have nothing else to add?
Only our
Ray?
phone number is a contact 0418 596 831. You can touch base with Neighbourhood Watch in Whitehorse. And to remind you that I'll see you on Monday the 17th.
Oh, that's if I get my dates right, of course.
Oh, well, no, but I will
having
know
trouble
whether you've
with them.
won if the Rolls Royce is out there in the Morris Miners parking spot.
No, there won't be any car of mine out there at all. You might find me on the Côte d'Azur or somewhere like that, mate.
You're not going to worry, wait. No, Peter, I will see you on that Monday with luck.
Look forward to it. Ray Summers from Neighbourhood Watch. Thanks, mate. See
Thank
you
you,
later.
Peter.
Bye
Good
for now.
indeed.
The time is just 9 minutes.